Salutations everyone, this is Razor bringing you guys an Overwatch video where today we're talking about the surprises of the 2-2-2 role-lock meta. We've had a few weeks to deal with this tremendous change to the game, and there was expectations that a lot of people had, including myself. I had an entire video of what I expected these changes to do, and I was right on some, and I was a little dumb on some others. And of course there were some surprises that no one expected. For instance, Symmetra being the most dominant DPS character of any time outside of like that month where Bastion had his Uber buffs and was meta in all levels. That was a rough time, and I don't think Symmetra is that oppressive, but in all of the games that I have played since the 2-2-2 role-lock, every single time the enemy had Symmetra, my team lost. Every time. And every time my team has had a Symmetra, we've won. And the times the enemy had a Symmetra far outweighed the times my team had a Symmetra. And outside of the times where it was attack and defense on hybrid maps to where only one of our teams would have Symmetra and would win, and then we would switch off. So that was really the only overlap that did happen. Symmetra kind of, she was a beast, especially at the higher levels. People even were saying that Symmetra was just annihilating. She was just destroying because the double barrier meta of Sigma and Orisa just gets shredded by Symmetra because she doesn't need to reload on shields, and she can amp up to her damage. And they had that bug fix that now has forced the team to nerf the damage and width of the beam for both Symmetra and Zarya. So it was increasing the output of their damage unexpectedly high, I think they said between 20 and 40% damage buff due to these changes coming through, which was more than they had anticipated, which is why they felt the need for the nerf, and lowering the base damage for the beams as well. And it is true, absolutely just destroying everything with Symmetra. It didn't feel great. I played it on quick play because the queue time for DPS in competitive is over 10 minutes, and I feel like I need to practice DPS if I want to play at the level that I've been placed at for the damage roll. I placed at pretty much the same SR that I ended the beta season at in each individual role, not very far from each other at all, and things were weird. Actually, going back to damage, but I'll make a separate video about that. But Symmetra dominating things definitely was not something that I expected, nor I think anybody else did, and it happened very quickly too. Within a couple of days, people started picking up Symmetra and absolutely annihilating. She benefited way more from 2-2-2 than anyone could have ever thought. And for me, it wasn't because she was good against double barrier, because of the other slightly unexpected change. It didn't surprise me a ton, but since every team has two tanks, you would figure, I made the prediction that tanks would be a lot easier to play because you would always have a tank partner and you would always have two healers healing you. And I predicted that damage would be easier to play as well because less people are going to be throwing on the damage roll. So those that are good at damage are finally going to be able to shine through. They're finally going to be able to show their stuff, Those dominant Doomfists don't have to worry about filling in as a healer because of one of their teammates wants to be McCree or Genji into a Bastion, or some dumb thing, or whatever. And I was right about that. But one of the things I didn't anticipate was that no one would pick main tank. It is, and it's just like that in quick play, even though we have an Orisa here. no one's picking main tank, and I think maybe the biggest reason for that, obviously, no one ever in the history of Overwatch has wanted to play main tank. That's just a role that has always been in demand, which is why it's my most played role, right? Is main tank, because I want to win games in the game mode where winning is the objective, right? Competitive. It's for people who really care about winning. But Sigma coming in definitely did not help things, because Sigma is not a main tank, and everyone seems to think he is. I've had the discussions with people in my team where it's just like, yeah, I think we need a main tank, and they're like, oh, we have Sigma. What are you talking about? And I'm like, Sigma is not a main tank, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, he is, and I'll just, okay, fine, tell all the pro players in the world that they're wrong then. Sigma is definitely in a similar spot of Wrecking Ball, in that they are neither a main tank nor are they an off tank, and they can kind of fit wherever. You can kind of play Sigma anywhere, and you can pretty much kind of play Wrecking Ball anywhere as well. Just the disruption factor is really good with Wrecking Ball. You don't have to be good with Wrecking Ball or get a bunch of kills. Sometimes distracting is all you need to take that first point, or to unlock the payload, or distracting the right players from doing the right things, and then their team gets messed up. It's like a tracer, except it's a tank, right? You have them in the back line, and you can't chase them because you don't have the mobility to, so you're just like, fuck it. Either I really try to have to hunt them down, or we just gotta hope that they don't make the right play. And sometimes they will, and sometimes they don't. And Wrecking Ball's ult, although has been nerfed, is still way more impactful than Pulse Bomb will ever be, which thankfully got its nerf reverted, because it's the hardest to use ult in the entire game, and it's not a very good one. My last game I played on Tracer, I got 4 sticks and 2 kills, because you're not guaranteed to get a kill even if you stick a lot of characters. But the fact that so many people are thinking that Sigma is a main tank simply because he has a shield has really hurt things. So typically most teams will have a Sigma, but if one is playing with a Zarya and the other's playing with an Orisa, the team with the Orisa is going to win. A, because yes, Orisa is still the best character in the game, but B, anytime in history, if one team had a main tank and the other team didn't, the team with the main tank is just gonna win, right? They're gonna have the shields, they're gonna have the sustainability, there's gonna be less pressure, they're gonna be able to make more space, and they're just gonna win more games when you have a main tank and the enemy team doesn't. And you're gonna lose more games if you don't have a main tank and the enemy team does, right? That is definitely, it's a struggle to put Sigma into the main tank role. You can make it work. We've all seen it work. We've had plenty of Ditto matches where both teams were Sigma Roadhog, right? And I don't think that will ever stop from happening, because people don't like playing main tank, which is why I can stupidly hope that the next character that is added to the game is also main tank, or is also at least a tank, and also hopefully a main tank. But I covered the problem with that in the Reinhardt problem video a couple of months ago. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the Reinhardt problem, where I talk about main tanks. It's really more of a main tank problem than a Reinhardt problem. He just happened to be the first main tank that people used in such a fashion. But I think Winston Sigma is an amazing combo. I love Winston Sigma. I'm undefeated whenever my team is running it. Granted, it's only happened twice because people don't play Winston, and I've gone up against a Winston, and 3 years later, people still don't know how to fight Winston, right? He'll block off the line of sight, if like I'm an Ana or something, and obviously Moira is just crushing it right now. I'll have my own separate video about Moira and just the ease of just destroying the universe with her, right? It's kind of always has been, right? But just right now it feels even stronger, mainly because of the double shield that sometimes people are running. So the fact that people are using Sigma as a main tank is troublesome, not just because he's not a main tank, but he's so much better as a character if he doesn't have to play the main tank role. You'll get so much more value out of Sigma if you're not relying on him to be the linchpin anchor point of the team. If you have your Orisa anchoring, then you have your Sigma able to flank and deal all the damage and carry and, you know, and do the things that we've all seen Sigmas do from Bronze all the way to Overwatch League, right? And I think Winston is amazing with Sigma because Sigma can kind of babysit the front line, not as good as a main tank can, but when a Winston is diving in and creating space and using his bubbles to block off cooldowns and putting pressure, I feel like that is insane value because they have to worry about the Winston. If they're not worrying about the Winston, then the Sigma damage is coming in, or the Doomfist or whatever, and the healers aren't getting pressured if you're trying to focus on both of them. So I think that's why that combo is really sick right now. I haven't seen Sigma Rein a lot, mainly because people don't like to play Rein. I personally don't like to play Rein myself, and just one of the more reasons why I play Orisa, not just because she's the best in every situation, but Rein definitely can work in any level of the game if you support him and the enemy team follows up on the space that he makes. And it's always been the case that if you give the Rein the tools to succeed, if you bubble him and pocket him and heal him, he'll always be able to just walk forward and just hammer everything and just win. But forcing Sigma to the main tank role, forcing him in that position, I think is worse than putting Hammond in the main tank position. It is just, you get way more value out of him there. And in my predictions that things would be better for tanks and better for damage, I also said things aren't going to change for the healers that much. But stupid me not realizing that things were going to be easier for tanks and damage, that inevitably is going to make it harder for healers. If it's not going to really change their role, it's going to be harder for them simply because it's going to be easier for everyone else. So I think right now is the hardest that healers has ever had it as far as like carry potential or things like that, because before you can kind of rely on, if I keep my tank up and and I'm better than the enemy healer, we're going to win because my tank is always going to be alive. Or if I we have two healers and they only have one, things are going to be easy. But since every team has two tanks and two healers, it really puts the onus a lot more on the damage roll to do what they can do, and that just going to make things more difficult for the healers, more demanding, which is why one of the reasons why Moira is so insane right now. So things are tough being healer. I can't carry my team along as much as I could have before, although I don't want these changes reverted. I'm loving the 2-2-2, and I don't think that will ever change as far as the role queue goes. Things are doing real well for tanks right now, especially if you don't have Sigma as your main tank. And if you're good on damage, you're finally starting to carry and see value out of that slot. If you're not a damage character, you're finally seeing, hey, damage characters are finally popping off because they're, more often than before able to do what they need to do. And everyone's just kind of been able to play their role more so. But I feel like it's really hurts the healer role, but it's helped the damage and the tank role. So there's definitely a lot of give and take there. But I'll have separate videos on Moira and how damage is right now, and maybe even Doomfist if I can get enough good footage. But yeah, definitely some weirdness. And quick play now that it also has role lock, it feels the same. No one plays main tank, and I don't know. People are just being more experimental, I think, is really only the difference between the two. So as much as I would like to play quick play to hone my DPS skills, I just feel like it still doesn't feel like competitive, not just because they're only single rounds, but because people aren't trying as hard and no one plays main tank and quick play. Whereas comp, if you have a tank that really wants to win, they'll probably pick main tank, and that just doesn't happen in quick play, but it does sometimes happen in competitive, and people will start to catch on how best to play Sigma, and it is not in the main tank role.